If you're familiar with my YouTube channel, then you know I am no stranger to hot takes. But today I decided to pose the question to all of you. What are the hottest takes you have when it comes to horror movies? And boy, did you deliver.
She stopped at a light and saw him walking in that field behind the Lost River Dive-In. Julie said he was so creepy.
What's up everybody, it's Nick here, and today's video is going to be quite interesting. See, today, I'm not going to be giving you hot takes, I'm going to be reading and reacting to your hot takes. A couple weeks ago, I had one of my viewers tell me that I needed to do this kind of video, and I'd be remiss if I didn't also shout out Cody Leach. See, he has done this kind of video before, and it was one of the most entertaining videos I've watched on his channel. So today, I've got it pulled up and I'm ready to go. So understand, if you don't agree with these takes, they're not mine, okay? Don't shoot the messenger. But I'm going to either agree or disagree and give you reasons as to why. So kicking this right off, we start with White Rose 902, and they said, Jason X kicked ass and had the two best kills in the franchise. The obvious liquid nitrogen one, but also the holograph of Camp Crystal Lake. He beat one girl to death in a sleeping bag with another girl in a sleeping bag. All right, so I am very familiar with both of those kills you're talking about, the hologram and obviously the liquid nitrogen one. Let me just say you're right on all accounts, okay? I love Jason X. I put it in my guilty pleasures list, and I am unashamed of that. And I think that the liquid nitrogen kill is easily up there in the top 5 kills in the franchise. And the sleeping bag kill is just really fun. So no pushback for me there. Next up, we have Super Strange Shadow. And it says, older horror movies are way better than the modern ones. This is something that I've heard many times over the years. There's really no way to quantify that. I guess it's a generational thing. But for me, I can see why some people say that. Some of my favorite horror movies, actually a couple in my top 5, are from the 70s and 80s. So I'm definitely biased, and I would probably say that, yeah, the 80s was peak horror cinema in my opinion. But there's some incredible ones that have come out in my lifetime, and especially in the last 5 years or so. So I can't get behind that statement on the whole, but I understand why some people feel that way. Wilson T2S says, Jacob's Ladder is an underappreciated horror film that deserves to be top 10. Jacob's Ladder is a very, very sad movie. I had never seen it until my buddy Mark actually sent me the 4K Steelbook last year, I believe, and I watched it. Did not know that end was coming. Definitely a draining watch. It's pretty depressing, but it's a fantastic movie. So, but when I put it in horror, I don't know. I mean, again, that's semantics, but I hear you, and I understand, and I agree. Jacob's Ladder is definitely underappreciated. Awful Truffle says, Friday the 13th, 2009 is kind of the definitive film in the franchise thus far. I mean, you guys know how I feel about that movie, so I'm not going to rail against it, but I will simply just say this. I can see why some would say that, because it is a greatest hits of the Friday the 13th franchise. Like, if you like everything that you come to Friday the 13th for, you're probably going to get it in this movie. But that's kind of the problem for me, because it's way too much of the greatest hits and not enough of the things around the edges. I don't know, man. It's just been a movie that I have struggled with ever since I first saw it. I just can't fully endorse it. And I feel like part of the reason, actually the largest reason, is the opening is incredible. I just don't think you can top that opening. So I'm well aware that it's a fan favorite. I know so many people love it. But I don't know. I mean, it just doesn't feel as dirty and as wrong as a Friday the 13th film should. And I don't mean that in oh, there's not enough nudity or kills. No, because there's plenty in this movie. But that Paramount era for Friday the 13th just felt like you shouldn't be watching it. You know, some of those movies were just I don't know if I should do this. And 2009 just has that kind of Platinum Dunes polish to it. And I'm not a fan. Eric 4040 says, The People Under the Stairs is Wes Craven's best movie. I mean, look, I'm going to tell you something right now. I love that movie. Definitely wouldn't consider it straight up horror myself. But I do love that movie. I don't know. I mean, for me, Craven's best movie is probably Scream. But then you got to look at, okay, well, he didn't write that. He just directed it. So, but then I would take A Nightmare on Elm Street over People Under the Stairs. But that's probably just the horror guy in me. But regardless, I appreciate you shouting that movie out because it's awesome. And that is one that I'm actually excited for this potential reboot we're going to get. I would like to see how they could do that these days. But definitely one that doesn't get talked about enough. Jack says, Predator 2 is the best sequel in the franchise. I mean, I'm going to be totally real with you guys. It's not very hard to be the best sequel in the Predator franchise. Let's go down the list really quick. Predators. I like it. It's decent. The Predator. Shane Black's The Predator. Awful. Literal dog shit. It's a terrible film. The Alien vs. Predator movies, if you want to count them as sequels. At best, the first one's fun, but it's not a great movie. Prey is not really a sequel. I'll agree. The concrete jungle aesthetic just makes it great. So Predator 2, sure, awesome. Jason Frostick says, Jason Goes to Hell is one of the best in the franchise when you don't have nostalgia for it or Jason. Subsequently, if it wasn't a Friday the 13th film, it would be loved as a classic more. You guys just want to get me in trouble. I swear to God, like, so many of you are like, oh yeah, we know he doesn't agree with this, so let's make him read this on camera. Okay. I respect the love for Jason Goes to Hell, all right? I've never been able to see it that way. I guess I can partially agree with you, though, in, like, if you don't have nostalgia for Jason, but then I would push back and say, but it's a Friday the 13th movie. So, like, understandably, we're coming here for Jason and Friday the 13th, and I just don't feel like it's very good in that regard. If it's its own thing that's kind of separated from the larger franchise, I totally get that. I don't know, man. I don't see it. I applaud the cojones you have to say that and be unashamed of it. I can't get there, but kudos to you. SPC Unleashed says, Invasion of the Body Snatchers 1978 is the best sci-fi horror film. Yeah, you can make the case. I would personally give it to Alien over Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but yeah, you could definitely make the case, and I don't even know if I would want to argue with that. That's incredible. I will even go as far as to say it's the best version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and it's not even the original. Some people might be like, no, the original's better. I don't know, man. I think 78 is the best one. So yeah, not too hot of a take. I love this name, okay? Car Bomb Parade says, Rob Zombie's 2 Halloween films tell the most concise and complete story of Michael Myers with a clear and believable beginning, middle, and end. Okay, shout out to you for your name. Shout out to you for shouting out Rob Zombie's Halloween movies. And buddy, I agree with you. I wholeheartedly agree with you. But that's the problem for a lot of people. And, for me a little bit too. In his duology, you're going to get all the answers you could want. All of the reasons, all of the backstory, all of the setup, everything. But I feel like that's a little bit too much for Michael Myers. I don't want that for Michael Myers. It's interesting as like an alternate universe kind of thing. And I obviously friggin' adore Halloween 2. My issues are really just more with his first Halloween, the first half of it particularly. But I agree with this take. Love or hate Rob Zombie's Halloween movies, this is correct. Brandon Simpson says, Friday the 13th, A New Beginning is top 3 in the series and arguably one of the best slasher films of all time. It's sleazy and kind of nonsensical, sure, but man is it charming. Oh, buddy, I love me Friday the 13th Part 5. Always have, always will. I totally agree. It's sleazy, it's dirty. It feels like one of those movies that when you're watching it, that's what I was talking about, okay? When I was talking about '09. This is peak, like, I shouldn't be watching this movie. There's something wrong with me watching this and the fact that this movie got released. Like, this is that. I love A New Beginning. One of the best slashers of all time. I don't know. Arguably, I'd put it in my top 50. That's high praise. So I half agree with you here, but I respect the hell out of your love for this one because you are not alone. Next up is Sasha Slashes, and they say, Malignant is a masterpiece, a wild bonkers ride, and the soundtrack is fire. I love Malignant. All right, so you're not going to get pushback from me. I loved this movie. I was actually shocked when it came out, and it was such a divided reaction amongst horror fans. Now, I guess in hindsight, it's really not that surprising because it's not really a horror film, like straight up at least. But yeah, this movie friggin' rules. So I agree with you. Chris Shamblin says, if you took the premise of Halloween Resurrection and used it for a Friday the 13th film set at an abandoned Camp Crystal Lake, it could be a top tier Friday the 13th movie. Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but I actually think that's an indictment on the Friday the 13th franchise. And again, guys, it made my top 10 franchises of all time. So, like, relax. I'm not a hater. But that's kind of my problem with Resurrection. That's my biggest problem, is that it feels so detached from Halloween as a franchise. If it was just a kind of run-of-the-mill slasher movie with no, ties to that iconic franchise, whatever. I could get behind it, I guess, somewhat. But, it doesn't belong with Halloween. But Friday the 13th, I mean, sure. Yeah, they did Demon Slug Jason, so they could do a found footage one. Casino der Toten says, I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre The Next Generation is one of the funniest movies ever and actually way better than people give it credit for. I will tell you this. It is hilarious. I do not disagree with you whatsoever. But is it way better than people give it credit for? I mean, I don't need a largely ineffective Leatherface that spends the entire movie crying. The Illuminati, nipples, there's a lot about The Next Generation to me that is just not good. But it's super funny, and it is a fun time, and I do think it gets trashed more than it should, because I think it's better than Part 3, personally. But, agree to disagree there. 8 Canny comes in and says, Weapons is a movie that has a laundry list of plot holes that are overlooked by its fans, because the premise of the movie is cool, and the non-linear storytelling is unique. The movie does not make sense, and is not believable at all. I'm down to go with a few things here and there, but the absolute ineptitude of the police not being able to find 20 to 30 missing kids is hilarious and takes me out of the immersion. Now, he went on to further explain why he had issues with Weapons. I don't disagree. I really, really did enjoy Weapons. I watched it a second time, and I wasn't as enamored as I was the first time. There were definitely things about it that I was like, oh, that's kind of not as good as I remembered. So yeah, I do think it's a little overhyped. Now, as far as like the plot holes, I mean, for me, honestly, that's just horror oftentimes. And I think the only time we look at that with a like magnifying glass is when a movie gets so praised, because then people are like, well, what about this or what about that? If a slasher film comes out and it's just another slasher film, people don't really feel the need to dig into it like that. But when people are comparing this to like some of the all-time great films, I understand why that is where we go. King Sear Black says, in my respectful opinion, Sinners is overrated. That doesn't mean it's a bad film. I just don't understand the hype. Man, I've heard this a lot. I'm going to vehemently disagree. I freaking loved that movie. As a straight-up horror film, is it a little overrated? Yeah, it's not a straight-up horror film. But, that kind of blend of like horror and Western and drama, like, I don't know. There was just something about that really hit all the right spots for me. This is one of my favorite movies I've seen in the last 10 years. But if I'm looking at it purely through a lens of being a horror film, I could see that. But overall, I'm not going to agree, man. I freaking love that movie. Daniel Thompson says, Canadian slasher movies are really good. Terror Train, My Bloody Valentine, Black Christmas are excellent. They are more like whodunits rather than established characters. So, yeah, I mean, I'll give credit to Canada where it's due. I mean, I like Canada a lot, actually. So it's not really a stretch for me there. But it definitely does deserve more credit. Absolutely. I've noticed when I talk about the original Black Christmas, I've gotten comments before from people being like, oh, thanks for showing Canada some love. And I'm like, Oh yeah, like no problem. I love Black Christmas, so that's not a problem. But yeah, you're right. They are more original, I'd say, in their slasher films. You know, to an extent. Cryptic Chance says, I love the first two Leprechaun movies and both Leprechaun movies where he goes to the hood. Well, I'm going to take that and I'll raise you. I love the first three Leprechaun movies, for the most part, two being the weakest of the three. And I love Leprechaun in the Hood, but not Back to the Hood. But at the end of the day, we agree there's four really good Leprechaun movies. So, you know what? Live your truth. Lanky SOB says, well, is that me? Child's Play reboot is the best Child's Play movie. Yeah, I'm not going to agree, but I do think it's criminally underrated. I've said that for many years. I liked it from the first time I saw it in theaters. Again, very different experience, but one that I really enjoy. So I won't get there, but I can get to that it's pretty damn good. White Rose chimes in again and says, hot take, if you could only keep one of the Halloween, Friday the 13th, or Nightmare series, it would be Friday the 13th. No, not at all. That would actually be the first one excised for me, personally. Love or hate Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street. I think that both of those franchises, in my opinion, have more likable characters. There's more depth to those characters. I think both killers are far more interesting. Yeah, I'm not going there, buddy. Major Nug says Demon Wind and Pontypool are both good movies. I haven't seen either one, so let's just say I agree. I agree. Yeah. Or if that's bad, I don't agree. If that was a trap, somebody let me know. Appalachian Nate comes in and says, elevated horror is really just low-thinking snobbery. Horror has always had important things to say, even, or I'd argue especially, in the 80s slasher era. The only problem is people who like their horror elevated need to have the message shoved into their faces rather than woven into the story as a deeper meaning, because they lack ability to analyze beyond the superficial. Okay, so you're kind of speaking my language here, because I too think that the elevated movement in a lot of ways has become douchebaggery by a lot of filmmakers, you know, and really fans too, that are like, oh, you just don't get it, it's elevated. No, I get it. I don't need it spelled out to me, though. So I largely agree with the statement. However, I will say, I don't think that it's all snobbery. I do think there's some elevated horror films in the modern era that are kind of like throwbacks to that. I think of X specifically. Like, some people ask me, why do you like X so much? It's basically just a ripoff of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. If you look at it through that lens as like a slasher film, you know, gratuitous, over the top, sure, whatever. But I see so much more in X. X is a movie that really plays off of our like primal human fear of getting old and dying and losing our youth. And that's just one example. Like, so I do think there's a line to walk. So I'll largely agree with you, but I think that's just more with the filmmaker. And I could name names. I'm not going to name names, but I will just say there are some working today that really are kind of just up their own asses. And when they make a movie, I'm just like, here we go. RPG Ranked says, my favorite genre of horror is anything that has to do with games or challenges. Things like Saw or Squid Game or The Platform are just way more interesting than anything else to me. I totally get that. I mean, having a good puzzle or mystery to solve, that's really cool. It's why I was actually particularly fond of Escape Room. Like, I thought, although it should have been rated R, they should have leaned a little bit more into the violence. I thought it was cool. The second one sucked, though. I do not recommend it at all. Kind of thinking man's horror, I guess you could say, in a way. In a different way. There's other kinds of thinking man's horror, but you guys get my point. Yeah, I can see that. Ian Ratcliffe says, 28 years later, The Bone Temple is the best movie in the entire 28 franchise. I totally agree. Not a big fan of that franchise, so that's not hard for me, but it is my favorite. Jacob Asher comes in and says, I like Busta Rhymes and Halloween Resurrection. The rest of the movie is so devoid of pleasure that the absurdity of Busta doing things like kung fu kicking Michael Myers out a window is what gets me through the movie. I agree. And I hate Resurrection. You guys know that. It's the only Halloween movie that I'm like, nope, I'm not watching this piece of shit. And is Busta's character stupid? Yes. Should he have ever been in this film? No. But is he the best thing about the movie? Yeah. I don't blame Busta for the script, okay? He read the lines and he delivered. So I agree. Rich Forever says, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer is way more entertaining than the first one. It's a lot more fun, I will say that. But I think the first one is a better movie, just like on a technical level. But it is a ton of fun. You know, I actually like Jack Black in it. I don't care what anybody says. Darkwing Dave 79. All of the Michael Bay remakes are actually really badass, except for The Hitcher. I really like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003. Michael Gregg says Time Cop starring Jean-Claude Van Damme is not only a top-tier time travel movie, but a kick-ass, full-throttle, high-octane, sci-fi action-adventure extravaganza as well, and deserves more respect. Yes, it does. You will get no pushback from me there. Go watch Time Cop if you haven't. Now, I'm going to package these two together because there are two people that said pretty much the same thing. White Rose and Sarah, basically both saying that Exorcist 3 is as good or better than the original. No. Okay? No, I will not tolerate this slander on the timeline tonight, okay? Look, I love both movies. I hate this. This is like choosing between children, okay? And yes, we all have favorite children. Luckily, I only have one so far, so it's not hard to pick. But here, it's like, part of me also thinks that people love Exorcist 3 more than they used to, and I think more in recent years, because when you go back through this franchise, you realize The Heretic sucks. So when you got a sequel after that that was actually good, it surprised a lot of people. And I also think it is popular these days to say it's better than the original. People like Christian say, oh, I'm going to do a whole expose about how it's better. Good luck, because you're never going to change my mind. They're both very different movies. They're not even the same kind of horror, largely. But because of the nostalgia I have for that first movie, I'm never going to agree. I see the points, but I can't. Casino der Toten says Werner Herzog's remake of Nosferatu is 1,000,000 times better than the Robert Eggers one. I prefer Eggers' movie, but I'm also not a fan of any of the older Nosferatus that I've seen, so, like, I'm not the one to ask. But honestly, man, I'm going to be real with you. I've actually seen a lot of people recently kind of turn on Nosferatu and be like, you know what, that wasn't as good as I thought it was. That's kind of boring. I don't agree, but I think a lot of people will agree with you. Inner Noise Audio says, I enjoyed The Bye-Bye Man. I don't think it's as bad as everyone says. There's some enjoyment, but I haven't seen it in years. So you are referring to the Pee Pee Poo Poo Man. And, I can't argue with what you enjoy, brother. You know, you wave that freak flag high, and you say it loud and proud. And, yeah. Pizza Cat says, Child's Play 3 is possibly the second or third greatest Chucky movie in the franchise. I'm just about there with you, and I think I agree. I love Curse of Chucky, and I love Bride of Chucky. But as I've gotten older and older, I really started to think, like, you know what? I think Child's Play 3 might actually be the third best. I think my most recent franchise ranking, I had it at 4th. I could be wrong. But I think I'm right there with you. I think after the original and after Child's Play 2, I do think it probably is number 3. So, I agree. Sir Stuart Wallace says, Sallow is one of the... I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Sallow is one of the scariest films ever made, and a lot of people who say they hate it probably have never watched it. Oh, and Seed of Chucky is overhated. Don't get me started on Seed of Chucky, okay? We're not going there, buddy. But I haven't seen Sallow, so I don't know. But I did hear some people defend it, and I did my most disturbing movies list. There were some people saying, no, it's actually a good movie. Super difficult watch, but it's actually good. So I don't know how popular or unpopular that take is, but I think there's a lot of people that agree with you. Look, if I butcher some of your guys' names, don't blame me, all right? This could be The Ed's Lanky, Theed Slanky, I don't know. But they say the concept of Freddy Krueger is way scarier than any of the movies he's in. 110% agree with you. That does not mean there's not effective nightmare movies and moments in those movies. 100%. Yes, Freddy has been scary on screen before. But the concept in and of himself is way better than anything they've put to film. And probably ever will. Let's just be honest. A dream demon. Yeah, I mean, Totally agree. SPC Unleashed says the Nightmare on Elm Street remake is a top 3 in the franchise. You know, I'm somebody that can defend that movie somewhat. I can't defend it that much. Brandon says, no idea if this is a hot take or not, but I think zombies have been done into the ground and are genuinely overrated and boring now. Thank you. I'm right there with you. Now, admittedly, it's never been my subgenre, but totally agree with you. I'm over it at this point. Christina says, Corey is what made Halloween Ends, not Laurie or Michael. I agree, but I think that that's a good or bad thing, depending on who you're asking. For me, it was a good thing. I thought Rowan Campbell was really good in the movie, and I liked a little bit of change. But for other people, that is the reason they don't like it, because they didn't want it to be about this new character. But I agree. Tom Tripp says, John Carpenter's best movie isn't The Thing. It's vampires. It's corny, violent, loud, trashy, and so much fun. The Thing is tense and atmospheric, but Vampires has a bit of everything for everyone, including Mark Boone Jr. So I agree with you that The Thing isn't his best movie. I think Halloween is. I also think his second best movie is The Fog. But I put The Thing at 3. So we agree that it's not his best movie. And I do like Vampires. That movie is a ton of fun. But I don't think it's better than The Thing. So you're on an island there. AJ Shores says, if someone tells you their favorite horror movie is Hereditary, it means they don't really like horror movies. Yeah, I don't agree with that. I know that Hereditary, for a lot of people, is very overrated, and I get that. I do. But I can't get behind that entirely. Like, that's... No. There probably are some people that aren't really big into, like, gore and slasher movies, so, like, Hereditary is more their style, so maybe that's what you mean. But I don't know. That's a pretty hot take. Chuck McKendry says, I think that Netflix's Texas Chainsaw Massacre was really good. Yeah, they did screw Sally over. Other than that, it's not as bad as people make it out to be. You know, there's a lot of fans of that movie. There really are. I think a lot of TCM fans were genuinely okay with it. I'm not one of them, but, you know, I'm not even really going to argue with the take. It is fun. I don't particularly like it, but you know what? I can see it. Sidney Jenkins says, Pet Sematary is overrated, and I actually prefer the remake. That's what I'm talking about. Like, you guys are trying to hurt my feelings. You know, I like the remake myself, but I would never put the remake in the same stratosphere as the original Pet Sematary. You know, you can say whatever you want about Denise Crosby and Dale Midkiff in that movie. I don't see it personally. I like them. But how dare you? Sean Movie Review says the first Saw is overrated. As a movie as a whole, like, maybe you have a point there. Maybe. But the twist is not. And I think that's the reason why that movie has persisted. It's that twist. Like, let's just be real. Love or hate that movie, that twist is an all-timer. Curtis says, Richard Brooker was a terrible Jason Voorhees. Y'all are just saying shit now, aren't you? Sofa King says, Hellraiser is a mid-franchise, at best. Only the first 2 are worth watching, and even those are just okay. So... Now I'm making myself mad, all right? No. The first 4 Hellraiser movies are all varying levels of good to great. I would say 1 and 2 are fantastic. Bloodline is great. 3 is good enough. It's fun. And I love 2022, okay? Although I will say, you saying that the franchise is mid is actually a compliment, because a lot of people say it's terrible. So, you know what? Let's agree. The Sport Guy says... Jordan Peele is the most overrated horror director of the current generation, whose career is based on ripping off anthology television, just like M. Night Shyamalan's The Sixth Sense before him. You know, after Get Out, I would have probably vehemently disagreed with this, because I was like, this guy is truly going to be something. Right now, I kind of agree with you. He is he has not impressed me since that movie. You guys know I'm not a fan of Us. I thought Nope was fine. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. But fine is not good enough after Get Out. I mean, Jordan Peele clearly showed that, like, he can do characters, he can do story, he can do, like, old school horror shit. Like, he showed that with Get Out. I don't think he's shown it since. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, man, I mean, you might be a little overrated. Now, I vastly underestimated the amount of takes that I was going to have to read. So I'm actually going to split this up into 2 videos. So this will be my last one for this video, guys. It's a lot to digest, and I know you guys are going to have thoughts. And so if I didn't get to yours, don't worry. I will get to it in the next video. I promise you. So the final one we have here is from Holden Jacobs. It says, Laurie Strode is not a top 10 final girl and is only great in H2O. You know, if you wanted to say, like, not top 5, I might have just, like, acquiesced. Been like, yeah, whatever. I think she's objectively a top 10 final girl. Even if it's just for, like, longevity. And it's Jamie Lee Curtis. She's a great actress. But now, you know what? I don't even agree with that. With only being great in H2O. I really liked her in Halloween Ends. I thought that was a really good performance by Jamie Lee. I think Jamie Lee's really good in Halloween 2018 as well. I just think that the part is written like shit. That's not the Laurie Strode that I know and love. So, nah, man, I can't get behind that take at all. I mean, respect to you, I guess, but all right, so this was fun, and I don't think I got too angry. There was a couple times where I was like, okay, you guys are clearly trying to get under my skin here, but I think it was manageable, okay? So, I want to know what you guys think, though. Do you agree with some of these hot takes, or do you disagree? And you know, I'm sitting here saying this, giving my closing salvo, and I see a comment that says, Johnny Boy Beatbox says, the Halloween franchise has never made a good film, even the first one. Motherfucker. So please make sure to comment on this video and share your thoughts. Make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And be on the lookout for the second installment of this video later this week. I will get to all of your guys's so long as they aren't just like trolling comments, and yeah, we'll see where it goes next. So thanks so much for watching. This is Nick at the Lost River Drive-In, and I'm pulling out.